A special Locked On holiday edition of Locked On Jazz. The Jazz, winners of 2 in a row, 5 of 7. What has clicked? What is real? And the stew is coming together. But what does Will Hardy do about full strength? And you, it's a holiday treat. Let's do it next. It's Locked On Jazz. Bum 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 pow.
You are Locked On Jazz, your daily podcast on the Utah Jazz. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
How are you? I am David Locke, radio voice of the Utah Jazz, Jazz NBA insider, and this is a live edition of Locked On Jazz, which we do very, very rarely, but it's kind of fun to do it today. Ron and I will be back with you tomorrow night after the show. Today's show, we will talk about take your questions and interact with the live audience. We will do talk about the Jazz having and how they're playing as of late with a huge win over Toronto the other night, an incredible comeback, come from behind fashion. And we will talk about the upcoming 2 on this trip with San Antonio and New Orleans right around the corner. Can the Jazz get a winning road trip after being horrendous on the road all year long? We'll look at that. The stew's coming together. The Jazz are at full strength. What do they possibly do with a rotation if you're Will Hardy tonight? So we'll touch on all those things, plus take your comments and your questions. So throw them at me in the live audience today. Excited to have you with us here on the show. As I mentioned, if you're new to this, I am David Locke, radio voice of the Utah Jazz, Jazz NBA insider, and this is Locked On Jazz, your daily podcast on the Utah Jazz, giving you insight, expertise, geeky numbers, and hopefully making it way better to be a Jazz fan each and every day. Thank you so much for making Locked On Jazz your first listen of the day, and thank you for being an everydayer out there. We are free. We are available on all podcasting apps. Any reviews are welcome, but please if you're on YouTube, hit subscribe. And then hit that bell button so you get notified anytime we do something crazy like this and the rest. All right, Jazz are in San Antonio. That's the skyline you have behind me. I don't think it's actually representative. Never seen it before. But, I mean, it is. It's the little hemisphere. Not much of a – it's a sprawling metropolis is what this city is. It's got huge population numbers just because of that, actually, all by itself. So that is kind of what San Antonio is. I just got back from a super long walk. I think I did – let's check. I did 7.5 miles, I think. Well, I was walking and saw Will Hardy. I did 6.8 miles. I was walking and Will Hardy told me about where a coffee shop was. It just happened to be an hour away. So I walked it and came back. All right. Well, last night, the win on the 23rd was really incredible. And I'm going to ask Will about this. There was one play, and I talked about it a little bit in postcast, that just kind of said to me, this thing's coming together. And Chris Dunn had it up top, and coming off double stagger on the right-hand side was Lauri Markkanen and Jordan Clarkson, and they couldn't get free. And instead of putting the head down, instead of panicking, instead of any of those kind of things, Chris kind of just held it together, veteran. Lauri came back the other direction and hit a monster 3. Probably as big a shot as any in that game. And to me, it was representative of it was representative of just kind of a growth of the team, that it has become calmer. It understands the purpose of their possessions and what they're trying to get done, where they're trying to go, and who's supposed to take the shots. And what the other one I would say is what the reads are. They've actually instituted a little bit more pick and roll recently. And in some ways, I almost feel as though that has made it easier on some of the guys to make decisions. Earlier this year, the Jazz were running predominantly like a drive game. They were running the fewest pick and rolls of anyone in the league. And now with John Collins kind of playing 5 and Walker Kessler playing 5, I think it gets the Jazz one that they always have a rolling big in there. And so the right way to play is to play more pick and roll in that sense. They are doing more kind of flow or whatever you want to call it with 5 out and in that sense. But when I see them playing a little bit more pick and roll, and I don't know if I'm totally accurate on this, it feels as though at least in the pick and roll that they're running, which they're the worst pick and roll team in the league. So maybe it's getting a little bit better. you're seeing better reads. And maybe that's what I'm really saying, because if you look up the numbers, the game at Cleveland, which was a loss, the game at Toronto, those are super low pick and roll numbers. It just seems to be having, and Detroit wasn't even a big pick and roll number. So it seems to be having like a bigger impact, maybe. Cleveland was a very good pick and roll game for us, I know. Toronto felt like we made some of the right plays out of the pick and roll in a way that we hadn't in the past. So you're seeing some progress, at least to me. And I think you're seeing just better reads being made by all of the guys, and then a better understanding of what we're supposed to be getting on those plays. Now, that night was particularly interesting because Will, as he's made just kind of his signature, he never substituted anyone, right? Abaji came in for Fontecchio at the beginning of the quarter, and he just never subbed anyone out. It was Dunn, Clarkson, Markkanen, Abaji, and I'm assuming, if I remember correctly, Kessler. And Walker was great. So Kelly Olynyk, who's been vital to all of so much of the success recently, wasn't on the floor. Colin Sexton, who's been scoring 20 whatever a night, wasn't on the floor. So this really, to me, showed a little bit of kind of the versatility we thought we were going to get from the Jazz early in the year, and it's now showing a little bit. That's like the stew is coming together. And I think if you talk to the coaches a little bit, they would tell you that also offensively, what you're beginning to see, one of the coaches described to me is we gave them ingredients earlier, 2 or 3 at a time, and now we've just kind of said, play. Use all the ingredients we've given you to figure out what is right for this possession, what is right for this time. And I think that's what you're beginning to see happening across the board. So really great stuff. Let me get to some of your questions. I've got some other things to talk about here as well, but I want to get to some of your questions kind of each and every segment. Let's see what Lee has to say. Lee says the win against the Raptors is the first time they came back from a big deficit all year. I think so. It's also, I believe, just their second come from behind fourth quarter win all year. We are 2-17 when trailing at the end of 3, and we're 3-17 when trailing at the half. We're 9-0 when we lead at the half, so that's kind of fun. But that was, and I do think it exposed. I'm super curious to see how the Raptors react to this. I thought it exposed all of their weaknesses too. Like, there are two sides to every story. Their story was not good, frankly. I thought their story kind of jumped out as a little bit of ugliness. Of all of their weaknesses began to show at the exact same time. And that, I think, was maybe that was, from their standpoint, has to be really, really disturbing. Ben wants to know, is Wemby playing tonight? So he's listed as questionable the last we heard. I know the Jazz went through shoot around involving with the expectation he would play. The Spurs, under my understanding, should have released a injury report as of right now, and I have not seen it. Usually we get a little update on their injury report, and by this time of the day, and we have not seen it. I certainly hope so. I'm dying to watch him play. I've never seen him play, obviously, in person. And so I am hoping that we get to see Wemby in all of his glory. I don't know if this is fair, but I don't want to point this out. Let me Wemby in his rookie, and I'm a fan. I think Wemby's going to be great. So this is not a criticism of Wemby. This is more of like LeBron James entered the NBA at 19 years old, averaged 21.6 rebounds and 6 assists in the 2003-2004 season. And they won 33 games that year. And the opening night roster that he played with that year was Ricky Davis, a second-year Carlos Boozer, Darius Miles, Zydrunas Ilgauskas, J.R. Bremer, Sana Diop, who I love as a person but wasn't a very good NBA player at that time, and Jason Capono. That was a terrible Cleveland team. And LeBron won 33 games with that team in 2003, 2004. Like, we all did this thing, like, who's a better prospect and this and that. Like, seriously, here are the leading minutes guys on LeBron James's rookie team. Ricky Davis, Jeff McGinnis, Carlos Boozer, Zydrunas Ilgauskas, Eric Williams, Darius Miles, Mateen Cleaves, and Ira Newble. Mateen Cleaves only played 4 games. And Tony Battie. Kevin Ollie played 82 games for that team. Kevin Ollie shot 37%. Like, LeBron James, we all wanted to play this game that, like, Wemby is LeBron. So we literally wanted to play this game from the very first day ever, that Wemby's the greatest player to ever play in the history of the NBA. Like, to compare what they are right now is a joke. They're 4-24. And that's, I don't know. I think it's super telling. All right, we'll get back to more of your questions. I don't mean that as you can take it how you want. I'm kind of over it, and I'm loving watching what's happening to Becky Hammond right now, because that's what happens when you're in the public limelight and make comments. But I can elaborate on that. I'm not taking a shot at Becky. I'm just taking a shot at what the life is. But my point is more about how totally incredible LeBron is than in any way, shape, or form actually taking a shot at Wemby. I think Wemby's still going to be great. He's a unicorn. We've never seen anything like him. He's incredible. He plays hard. He's awesome. He changes the game. I can't wait to watch him. Like, it's awesome. But boy, should we be giving LeBron more credit than we do. All right, we're just getting started. Live show. More of your questions, more of your comments. Jazz are at full strength. What does Will Hardy possibly do, and who plays and who doesn't? That's coming up as well here on Locked On Jazz. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at eBay Motors, and they want to make sure that you have a guaranteed fit and a guaranteed fit for your fantasy. It's eBay Motors, guaranteed fit fantasy picks of the week for the #1 fantasy show in the country, Josh Lloyd and Locked On Fantasy Basketball. What are the best fantasy picks each week? Brought to you by eBay Motors, guaranteed fit for your car, guaranteed fit for your fantasy team. Dante Exum. Wow. He's been so good. Watched him in the Spurs Mavericks game the other night. Watched him last night in the win over the Suns. Jason Kidd says he will stay in the starting lineup. His shooting will regress. He's not going to shoot 70%, but he is still out there. Jaden Ivey of Detroit, Monty Williams, finally giving him his minutes. He's delivered. Remains to be seen if Williams stays with that. But Jaden Ivey is a top former 5 pick. Isaiah Hartenstein appears that Mitchell Robinson is out for the year, so Hartenstein is clear. Add Jalen Johnson. If he was dropped from your league, you should draft him because he should have been dropped. And he's now back. And Taurean Prince is getting more time with the Lakers. So those are your 5 guaranteed fits from Josh Lloyd for your fantasy basketball team. Dante Exum, Jaden Ivey, Isaiah Hartenstein, Jalen Johnson, and Taurean Prince. And now it's time for you to go take care of your ride with 122 million parts over your #1 ride or die. Mine happens to be a Sprinter van. You can make sure your ride stays riding smoothly. Brake kits, LED lights, roof racks, bumpers, whatever your baby needs. eBay Motors has it. And with eBay Motors guaranteed fit, it's guaranteed to fit your ride the first time or every time. Money back. Plus, at these prices, you're burning rubber, not cash. Keep your eBay ride or die at ebaymotors.com. eBay Motors, guaranteed fit, only available at U.S. customers, eligible items, only exclusions do apply. Jazz and the Spurs tonight. You can catch that on Sirius XM. Sorry, I have a call coming in that I need to send a text to just tell them when I'll be available. Sorry. The Jazz and the Spurs, you can catch that on Sirius XM. All your hometown broadcasts are available on Sirius XM for you throughout the season. So make sure you do that. You can also listen on KSL Sports Zone. Let's go to Julie, who's always so great to be a part of our programs. How do players cope with all the trade clutter? It must be tough. That is a great question, Julie. It wears on them immensely. it wears them out badly. It wears out their wives. It wears out their families. It's an incredibly human aspect of it. I mean, I think the greatest example I can give this to you also is like Joe Ingles was so mad when he got traded. He was out for the season with an injury, and he was so mad and offended. And so there's two things. One is the fact that a team's willing to trade you as an insult to these players. That's how they take it, regardless of whether it's meant that way or not. And then the second aspect is, like, what am I doing with my kids? What am I doing with my family? Where's my wife going to be? And for the wives, it's super hard. This is their social group. They're in these towns. They make friends. They're other friends of the other wives. This is what they get along. And I think it's really hard. And it's why, honestly, I do a bad job for you guys during trade time because I hate talking about it. I know it's the number one thing you guys want to talk about. I try to get it in as much as possible. But I also know, like, I'm about to go get in an elevator with one of these guys, and like, it's just, I feel terrible about them. So it hurts me in my ability to do the job because I know how much it tears them up and talking to them about it, and and they'll joke about it, but it wears them out. And it's not bad yet. At least in my opinion. It gets super bad middle of January to middle of February. Like, it's all they hear about all the time. And they're, in this day and age, they're just checking all the time to see what the latest is on everything. So it's really beautiful. Dandy Fernandi wanted to ask about Dante Exum. It's awesome, isn't it? And Lee says it looks like Dante put on some extra weight. Definitely been working on his body and showing on the court. And I also think he's playing the perfect role. He is playing some point guard. I always thought Dante was a 3. I said this all the time when he was with us. Can he just play the 3? Can we move him off the ball, not make him play point guard? He doesn't shoot it great, but he can drive it off the ball. He can defend. And he's playing with more strength and assertiveness and confidence than he ever played with the Utah Jazz. So that is great. And I love it because he's such a great kid. And he's wearing his dad's haircut now. He's looking like Cecil. It's really, really, really cool to see him do this. His shot doesn't look dramatically different. And the only thing I'd just say is there just aren't as many burps. Like, I just felt like he burped a lot as a player, if that makes sense. Like, I thought his game had indigestion is really how I would say it. Like, there'd just be these moments where you're like, ugh. And I don't see that at all. And so I thought it was really, really cool to watch him. How do the players deal with unpredictable amount of playing time and lineups? Paul, this is a great question. And this is, I think, the biggest thing. And this is what Will Hardy is so much asking out of his players, is to accept that and to understand that if one night it isn't yours and if the next night it is, to not get frustrated. But it's hard. Like, let's take Talen Horton-Tucker for a second. Okay? Like, I don't know what happens tonight. But let's take Talen Horton-Tucker for a second. So Talen Horton-Tucker had a tough start to the season. He if you kind of look at him, we can look at his splits or however we want to look at Talen. Let's look at his splits month by month. And so Talen ends up playing a lot of starting point guard and, a lot of turnovers. The offense struggles. The team loses. And in his first 19 games of the year, Talen shoots 37%. He shoots 21 of 73 from 3. That's not good enough. You can't shoot 36%. You can't, in the 9 games in December, he kind of grapples coming off the bench. He starts a little bit. He's averaging 16 points, 2 rebounds, 5 assists. He's not turning it over. He's averaging 1 turnover a game, 1 in that third. He's shooting 50% from the field. He's shooting 44% from 3. He's improved his catch and shoot 3-point shooting from 30% to 38%. His usage rate is actually way up and he's way more efficient. We're +7 when he's on the floor in the month of December. He might not play tonight. There's a real chance he doesn't play tonight. Now, for a lot of people, whatever reason, Talen has become this like Will said the other day, Talen gets a lot of criticism he doesn't deserve. The last 10 games, Talen Horton-Tucker is basically shooting 50-40, 50 44%. 16 points, 5 assists. He's cut down his turnovers. He's made massive strides. He may not play tonight. Like, I don't know how Talen Horton-Tucker plays tonight. Let's take Chris Dunn. Chris Dunn has started our last 2 games. He's brought a level of calm and collectiveness to us on the road. Toronto was not guarding him at all, and then he clutched up and answered with 2 big threes. All of his weaknesses are still prevalent. He's shooting 8 of 22 from the field. He's 2 of 8 from 3, but it's undeniable. We're plus 21 with him on the floor in his last 2 starts. He has 23 assists. He has 13 rebounds. It's undeniable that we are more comfortable when he's on the floor. We're more collected. We play the game calmly. He can defend. Keontae's available tonight. Are you just benching Chris Dunn? He have 23 assists and 3 turnovers in the last 67 minutes of basketball? Just because Keontae's back, who I'm a huge fan of, but also, let's be honest, hasn't been that great, right? Like, shooting, he for the whole run, he's shooting 30 some odd percent. Colin Sexton started the year kind of funky. We tried a bunch of things with him, came off the bench. Opening month, he shot like 44%. He hit 23 of 66 from 3. We were terrible when he was on the floor to open the year. We got a little better as the year went on. December. He's gotten 7 starts. In his 7 starts, he's averaging 23 points, 3 rebounds, and 4 assists a game. He's shooting 47% from the field, 41% from 3, and 90% from the free throw line. He's turning it over twice a game. Fine. He's scoring 23 a night at a high-level efficiency rate. What are you doing with him? Because Jordan Clarkson's back. Like, what are you doing with him? He didn't play the fourth quarter the other because Jordan's on. How are you doing this? Like, I don't know what Will Hardy's supposed to do with all this. We'll talk about some more. I want to keep breaking this down and look at this a little bit more as we continue on Locked On Jazz. Special Tuesday live edition of Locked On Jazz today. It's brought to you by our friends over at Murdoch Hyundai, located at 4646 South State Street. Also located in Linden and in Linden, Logan, and 4646 South State Street. The Murdoch lineup of cars, absolutely fabulous. I guess I can just speak for the fact that I have purchased 3 of them in my lifetime. 2 Santa Fe's, 1 for each kid, because it was the safest car I could find on the market. That was reasonably priced, relatively, for a new kid. For a 16-year-old, it was a little pricey. But, hey, it was the safest, best bells and whistles, and what I thought could get them up and down the canyon safely. And then I bought the Ioniq 5 for myself because I wanted an electric car, and that was the best one I could find on the market. I now wish I had the Ioniq 6 because I think it's really sweet. It's all over at Murdoch Hyundai. If you're going to head over there, do some end-of-the-year shopping, please email me first at dlock09@gmail.com, and I'll make sure we take care of you at 4646 South State Street or in Logan or in Linden. Just make sure you tell me which one first as you head over to Murdoch Hyundai and stop by and see. Email me first at dlock09@gmail.com. Today's show is also brought to you by Game Time. Game Time is the official ticketing app of Locked On and is the answer for you for all of your ticketing needs. Why? Because you get a picture of the seats. Why? Because it's easy to buy tickets for every kind of event. Why? Because you get the lowest price guarantee, event cancellation protection, job loss program, etc. And you get last-minute ticket deals, flash deals, and zone deals. I was listening to Locked On Nuggets today, and Matt Moore was talking about how he and his wife go to Avalanche games based on what their tickets are that day. She loves going to the Avalanche games. They just look at Game Time to find the best prices at the last minute, and then they head to the game. Kind of a cool. It's the only ticketing app that gives you comfortable peace of mind with your purchase. You see the view, you get all in pricing, you buy tickets in 2 taps. It's all at Game Time. Redeem with the promo code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Again, the promo code is LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed, all at Game Time. Thanks so much for tuning into the live edition of Locked On Jazz today. Much appreciative and glad to have you aboard. 20 Locked On Sports Today on YouTube is your 24/7 national sports channel. Check it out. Make sure you grab a hold of that. By the way, Jazz tickets are available coming up at UtahJazz.com, and also tonight's game is available on Jazz Plus. All right, let's keep going, though, for a second. So what do you do with Chris Dunn? What do you do with Colin Sexton? What do you do with Keontae? Like, they're all playing the same position. So, like, Keontae's back. Is he just automatically into the starting lineup tonight? Are you taking Chris Dunn out, who's won you 2 games, has 24 assists, and 3 for Keontae George, who, by the way, had clicked in? Like, Keontae's last few games were the best games he had ever played. I talked to Keontae after practice today about just him trying to understand, what he's watching and how helpful it was for him to just kind of watch games. Keontae's last 2 games before he got injured, he shot 54% from the field, 50% from 3, 23 points a game. Like, he had really had 2 of his best games. If you stretch him out a little bit to like his last 8 games, he still was at 37% and 36% from 3, but he was up to 16 points a game. I talked about being a rookie and just watching and how much he was able to learn during that 2 weeks off. He said he didn't like it, but maybe it was useful. He just kind of was able to take a break. I think it's going to be wildly useful for him. I actually think, frankly, if I think there's an argument, you should just give all of your rookies 2 weeks off at some point in time. I really do. So what do you do? If you're Will Hardy tonight, you have Chris Dunn, you have Keontae George, you have Talen Horton-Tucker, you have Jordan Clarkson, you have Colin Sexton. One of those guys probably doesn't play. Simone Fontecchio is now coming off the bench. He was terrific as a starter, shooting it really, really well. Lowry's back. So Lowry starts. Simone plays after him. What do you do about John Collins, Kelly Olynyk, Walker Kessler, Omer Yurtseven, John Collins? Do I have them all? You started Kelly and John the other night. You got Walker needs time. Is Ochai going to slide into as a 4? What about Taylor Hendricks, who is beginning to show some real understanding? I have no idea how Will Hardy does this. Julie wants to know could Keontae and Chris play together? I think Chris has calmed Keontae a little bit at times, and so I think that's a good idea. But on the other end, you're really trying to get Keontae to play point guard and learn how to play point guard for his future. I mean, one of the things Keontae said to me, which I thought was interesting, and I didn't follow up on it because we were kind of walking out of the arena together today, was he said, it makes me understand better what this team needs out of me in my future role with the team, which I thought was super interesting, and I didn't build on it. But that's probably as a point guard and a ball creator and a scorer. And I think that's really an interesting observation on his time. With the second hardest strength of schedule remaining, do you think the Jazz go above or below 500 from this point on? Oh, I think below. I think they're playing really well. They've won 5 of 7. I think the schedule, we had some scheduling games in there that were good for us, but I don't think we're an above 500 team. I'd be really surprised. I'd be really impressed too. I mean, I'm really impressed with what Will has done with his team. We've only been favored 4 games all year. We've won 12, right? That's crazy. It's really, really, really impressive. It'll be interesting. Good question coming in from Mr. E. What kind of players or position Jazz are trading for? So, I mean, I think there has to be, let's back up the question. Are we in an asset accumulation mode still, where we're trying to get picks, pieces for our future? Or do we think we can try to get one of those major talent pieces? I don't think we can get a major talent piece right now. Now, we went after Drew Holliday. Remember, you're trying to get a top 10 player, top 20 player, and a top 50 player. Lowry posted up the other night, late in Toronto, was a top 20 player play, by the way. That's the jump. That's the play. He's top 30 right now. Those plays late in game, those are top 20 plays. Those are the plays he has to make to be a top 20 player. And I don't think we can go get a top 50 player right now. If you can't go get a top 50 player right now, I'm not sure fringe pieces are that important for us unless they're a Kelly Olynyk type player that holds everything together. To me, the way they're using Kelly right now has just solidified everything and brought it together. So I think that's Will be interesting. Will THT be available today? Yes, he will be available today. Thank you for your question. Keontae is playing as well. And finally, Bryce Sensabaugh is with the team. Why isn't Bryce getting a chance? What's the path to seeing NBA minutes? Like, I don't see a path for Bryce get a lot of NBA minutes as long as we got Chris Dunn, Colin Sexton, Taylor Horton-Tucker, Keontae George, and Jordan Clarkson on the roster. One of those guys might not play tonight, or Ochai might not play tonight, and Taylor might not play tonight. We're full health here, surprisingly, on the 31st game of the season. And the thing on Bryce is I think he's doing a great job in every way, shape, or form of getting ready and getting available to this team. All right, that is Locked On Jazz. Thanks so much. Appreciate you. Talk to you soon.